Hi, welcome to my podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Workflows and Espressos. I am Meaghan Moylan, soon to be Meaghan Myers, and I have brought the other half of the Myers household to Workflows and Espressos today.
Hello, everyone.
Who are you?
Hello, everyone. I'm Clark Myers, Meaghan's fiance. I'm a chef, and it's pretty much the only job I've ever had. From when I could first get a job, I'd always worked in food and beverage and restaurants and everything else. And I had one job that wasn't in restaurants and realized how damn expensive food was to buy for myself. And so I went right back to a restaurant after not working in one for the only 6 month stint that I ever did not work in one.
I have invited Clark on the show today for a couple of reasons, and I was telling him this as we've planned to record this episode for a while now. And I've had two friends in the industry who both own their own vacation rental companies come to me in the last couple of months and say, "Hey, there's a badass spot in my town where I own my vacation rental company. I'm super plugged in to my community, and I feel like it could be a good opportunity to open a restaurant." And as I started thinking about this, they were asking my advice, which is almost laughable considering I'm marrying a chef who has so much F&B experience. And I just thought that if these two people had this question with the extra capital that they've made from their vacation rental company, that there has to be a lot of other people out there who have thought about or want to expand into the F&B space. And also, I talk about you all the time on the podcast, so I felt like it'd be nice for you to kind of come on and get to see some of my world and also tell the world about your business and all of your advice and insights. So, I guess my first question for you would be, are you excited for our wedding, which is in 2 months?
I'm very excited for a wedding. Yes. I think with the way that my life is, especially during the summer, obviously, I don't focus on it and haven't been in as much of the planning as you, but now I'm finally hitting that part where I'm like getting real excited about it and I can start seeing summer wind down and our catering business wind down and the restaurant's starting to get a little slower. And now I'm like, it makes me very happy thinking about that day.
I can tell you're much more plugged in to the planning recently.
Yes, I am.
So, when wedding planning started, my sweet angel fiance was like, "Baby, I love you so much. This is all you, honey. I'm going to show up. You pick the decor. You do this, you do that. I just can't wait to marry you." And then I would say about 3 weeks ago, he said, "Honey, I'm ready. You tag me in.
Diving in,
I'm going to
putting
dive
on my
in.
scuba gear.
Give me the color palette, all right? Tell me what the menu is. Get me on these calls with our planner." And I said, "Absolutely not."
Like,
And
we settled for me handling the food, which is
yeah,
good.
yeah. So we've compromised and now he's handling the food, which makes a lot of sense, and I'm doing everything else. And I said, I love you. You cannot come to the call with the decorator." Because you would say,
I have a lot of ideas about flowers.
you'd have a lot of ideas. Yeah. Okay. So with these questions that have come up recently, and I did an episode talking about vertical integration a couple of weeks ago where I dove into the businesses that we have under the Outpost Group umbrella, including the partnership with Provisions, which is your company. And it has been such a whirlwind, even like dipping our toes into the F&B space. And I obviously like only come from vacation rentals. So I felt very out of place and confused in a lot of ways. And I'd love from your perspective for anyone who's listening that's in hospitality right now that has a hotel or a vacation rental business, or even is a host with one vacation rental who has this like extra capital that's considered getting into the F&B space, like, well, what do you have to say about that? Like advice or thoughts
Mhm.
or ideas, or don't do it or yes, do it. What do you?
Yeah, I mean, how much time do we have, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I could this is like this is what I'm most passionate about, and, you know, whether you're building your brand in a new way, or you're expanding into something completely different just because you really like a space and you know that the business is there. I think the number one thing is what you were talking about earlier, is that you have the capital to do it,
Mhm.
because there's so many sayings in the restaurant business, but if you want to lose money, you should start a restaurant. And when you first start, I haven't been a part of a project, and I've opened 5 places, including a place where that we reopened every single year, which was more of a seasonal place. It was a lodge, and seeing all of the things and the hoops that you have to jump through to open a place, and that you don't really make money for the first, if you wanna be if you want to be conservative with your capital and you wanna be conservative with your choices when you're opening the place, you gotta plan on not making money for 3 years, you know? And
Mhm.
that's, if you're not making money after 3 years, then you should talk about not having that place anymore, but that's when it really happens, and that's when things start clicking. So capital is very important. Gotta
Mhm.
have the money to put into it, gotta have the money to invest in the employees, in the marketing, in bringing people there. Another thing is the location and where it is. And obviously, people that have property management companies, people that have other businesses in locations, they're gonna know that business environment more than someone that just has a good idea and wants to start a coffee shop that's not from there, which is really good. So I think that you want to look at what has the most foot traffic. Where are the most people staying? Do they park and do they walk if you want to do a coffee shop? Because most people want to just kind of walk to a local coffee shop instead of drive. If they drive, usually they're going to go to somewhere where they sit down and have a full meal. And it's going to be like more of an actual restaurant outing if they're going to drive there. So, like, are people going to walk there? How many people are going to be staying there and traveling there? And then the other thing that I always look at is, what does the community need?
Mhm.
What does the community need? If there's 5 coffee shops, and yeah, it may be a booming tourist destination, but if there's 5 coffee shops, they don't need a coffee shop, you know? Also, where are people coming from? Where are people traveling from? And if 50% of your people are coming from Texas, how many barbecue spots are there? You know? How many good burger spots are there? Because everyone likes to eat differently when they're on vacation, depending on where they're from as well. And they all crave something from home, especially if they're there for a while. So I think looking at what type of restaurants there are, and if there's any void in the market that you can fill,
Mhm.
and then putting a plan together on how you attack that. That's how we've kind of always done things with our business. There was, when we first started our business, there was really no private chefs around. There's a few really small ones, but no one with a larger organization that could send multiple chefs out to different locations and things like that. So we attacked that first. And then we found other gaps in the market, like late night, nobody's serving food. Nobody is serving food after 10 p.m. So we open up a late night spot called Munchies, and where we do smoked chicken wings and burgers and everything else, because no one has that. And people are searching on the internet and looking on Uber Eats trying to get food delivered to their hotels or delivered to their Airbnbs in the town that we're in. And so I think you look for a gap and then you fill it.
Do you in terms of okay, that was a lot of
I
information.
know. I'm sorry.
No, it was so good. Like, all of it was amazing. Okay, so going back to, like, the capital piece,
Hmm.
would you say that at the minimum, if you have a spot, let's say you have a spot secured, you need to open or you decide that you wanna open quick service breakfast or a coffee shop or some type of, like, lunch option that's faster, like, would you say you need a minimum of $500,000?
It all depends on the market. It depends on how much the rent is there a month. I would want 3 years of rent in my
Mhm.
bank account. And then I would want a year and a half of food costs in my bank account. Average restaurant, average food and beverage company runs at a 25% food cost,
So
you
explain
know?
what a food cost is.
So a food cost is how much money you're spending on the food and drink that people are going to eat. On average, you're going to upcharge anything that is food or beverage at least 60%. You want to upcharge it about 75%. You lose on some things, on like your lost leaders, because it brings people in the door. If it's something really cool, say if say if you have a breakfast spot and you do a truffle omelet. Truffles are expensive as hell. You can't charge $45 for a truffle omelet. So you run that at 30, but then you use bacon on 4 different dishes, and you end up running a 10% food cost on bacon, and you try to make it up. So your average food cost, you want around a 25%, and you want to have about a year and a half of what you're expecting your sales to be, 25% of that just for your food costs, and then for the rents as well.
What do you expect, like, bottom line of your restaurant to look like, right? So a vacation rental company averages like a 6 to 10% margin at the
Mhm,
end of the day.
mhm,
Like
mhm.
small margins, so much of the work is or so much of the money goes into the operating costs. Is that similar on the restaurant side?
It is different with every model there is. It can be so if you're doing high volume, more volume, higher margins, of course, and that's with a lot of things. If
Turn
you
and burn.
turn and burn, exactly. If you can get people in, if you can get people in and get people out and constantly have a rotating door of people come in, whether it's a dinner restaurant, whether it's a dinner restaurant where you're training your servers on not to push the dessert because that keeps people in their seat for another 25 minutes and you're only going to get, even if it's four people, they're going to get one dessert. That's four people splitting $15 worth of dessert when you could have got them out of their chair, offered them just something maybe to go or something like that before they get up, get a whole nother group of people in that table and get them on appetizers and having them order entrees. You're tripling, quadrupling how much money you can get per seat. So like maximizing the dollar per seat if you have a sit down place, or maximizing how many people you can get in and out if it's a quick service and if it's a fast casual style place. But you want to play on volume because the higher the volume, the higher your margin. On
Okay.
average, I would say like a breakfast lunch place does anywhere from 5 to 12%. It's going to be 5 for a while until you start really nailing stuff down. Because you're going to start with more staff than you actually need because you don't want to slip up. You don't want to get a bad review, you know? You're going to start with more expensive ingredients than you're going to be able to negotiate in the future with your purveyors
Mhm.
because you're not going to have any deals when you first open a place.
Mhm.
And then after they see a history of you purchasing, then you can renegotiate. Then you can renegotiate how much you're paying for bacon. Then you can renegotiate how much you pay for eggs and everything else. We don't have any of that power at first.
I think you've scared everyone away already.
Really? Oh shit. Well, when you asked me to do this, I was like, well, it's a scary business.
Actually, so I have a friend who owns a vacation rental company, owns a hotel, and
Mhm.
has, I think, 3 restaurants. And the last time I saw him at a conference, his name's Steven, I said, "Hey, Steven, like, how's it going with the business? Like, you're doing a lot over there." And he said, "I'll tell you, my restaurant is the thing that makes the least amount of money and has twice as many problems as everything else." And it was funny because we were opening, it was, like, right after we had opened the cafe,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Damn, I really, really, really relate to that." And, I mean, the vacation rental business, we've talked at length about it, and obviously, just from seeing it, like, it's so laborious on so many ways. Like, you're trying to please 2 different clients at the same time, the homeowner and the guest, and almost always the homeowner and the guest have conflicting wants and conflicting needs, right? Like, the owner wants everything to be pristine. They want the most amount of money possible, the least amount of occupancy possible. They want to make decisions that benefit them and don't necessarily benefit the guest.
Mhm.
Whereas the guest like wants to check into a clean home for likely the least amount of money as possible that is really nice and does receive the highest level of service. And it can be really challenging. And then on the restaurant side, I feel like the staffing is so, so, so difficult, especially for so many listeners who are in vacation rental destinations, which think like leisure markets. I mean, yes, urban markets are big for vacation rentals, but leisure markets have a lot of like giant players with 3, 4, 500 homes. And I don't know when you start to think about expanding and having to hire even more people
Mhm.
because hiring like housekeepers and maintenance techs and reservationists already is like so, so, so challenging, and then retaining them once you have them. So on the restaurant side, like, how do you approach staffing, and do you have an issue with retention? And would you say that that is like one of the most challenging things about owning a restaurant? Ashley, so excited to have you back for another In Haven Insight. What do you have for us this week?
Hi, Megan. So, as you know, InHaven is a procurement platform dedicated to the vacation rental industry, and we work with hundreds of professional property managers representing tens of thousands of listings. One of the biggest challenges our customers ask us to help them with is the headache they face when managing inventory, especially when they're purchasing in bulk quantities. For example, our customers might buy a case pack of 72 queen pillowcases because of the discounted pricing, but realistically, not many homes need that many pillowcases. This often leads to overstocked closets or frustration trying to keep track of what's left.
Yes, I know this problem very well, Ashley. So, how is In Haven helping property managers solve this problem?
So, InHaven has developed a new inventory management tool that simplifies this process. Our inventory management tool allows property managers to track and manage their inventory, whether it's purchased from InHaven or other suppliers. You can allocate specific quantities to properties, ensuring that each home has just what it needs and not 72 queen pillowcases. Plus, you'll receive notifications when your stock is running low, so you can place another bulk order at the right time, eliminating the guesswork and reducing all that additional waste.
As always, you're really coming with the knowledge, Ashley. I love it so much. How can people reach out to you if they want to learn more for their own business?
Yes, so please do reach out to me at ashley@inhaven.com or visit our website. We'd love to offer you a demo on our new inventory management tool and show you how it can make your operations much more efficient.
See you next week.
I'll get to that in a second. But I would say that you have that with a restaurant, and not that other business owners that own other types of businesses don't love it and it's not their passion. But if the restaurant is not your passion, it's going to eat you alive
Mhm.
because you have to spend so much time there or so much time in it if you want it to really become that dream of what you think it's going to be.
You think you
Um,
could hire someone to do that, or you think it has to be the owner?
no, I think you can hire someone to do that, but in my opinion, it almost has to be equitable.
Yeah.
It has to be an equity position because I mean, call a spade a spade. You're not always getting the most professional people working in a restaurant. You got people flying the coop for an extra dollar an hour if they hear the restaurant down the street is paying an extra dollar. If you don't provide an amazing environment, great training, and an environment for them to grow, you know,
Mhm.
giving people freedom to make their own mistakes and not just stuck in just a cog in the wheel because when it comes down to it, it's not always a great place to work. It's hot as hell. The hood vents go out. It's 95 degrees and there's still tickets rolling in and they got to be cranking out food, and it is not the most glamorous position. So I think someone that runs it needs to have a piece in it somehow. Whether it's equity, whether it's if they are meeting the numbers that you put in front of them, they're getting a piece of profit sharing or something like that, because it is very hard to get people to care 75% as much as you do as the owner. So any little tools you can use and any little piece you can give them to make them want to do better and keep that place running and show up and pick up that phone call when their cook doesn't show up and they have to show up instead of you getting that phone call. All of those things are so important to keep it moving. With the lower level staff, I think that it's very important to just figure out what other people do and give them a little more. And it doesn't have to be money. It can be having team meetings and bringing coffee every morning and just chatting about looking at the numbers, looking at the reservations, and just having a team feeling, something that you don't get in the other restaurants, whatever it is, and whatever you may do in your other businesses. If you could somehow do that with your restaurant employees and give them something and a feeling when they get to work that they don't get in other restaurants, because other than that, all they're looking at is a paycheck.
Mm.
And I mean, I'm lucky enough to have staff that has worked with me. I mean, all my staff has been with me a really long time, with the exception of a few at different restaurants, different spots. But I know that I have to treat them good. They're not just going to stick around. I have to make it a place that they want to show up to work.
Yeah.
Whether it's they hit the aux cord on the speaker in the kitchen for the day, or it's the littlest shit.
Yeah.
Or everybody likes a certain energy drink. We keep that in the fridge. It's just like tiny little things like that that create an environment that people want to be in, because it's not a great environment all the time. So like they have to remember the good parts.
It's funny because I talk a lot about professional development on the podcast and like offering growth opportunities and being vulnerable with your employees and like sharing the direction of the company and why it's important. And one thing that you do, which I really admire, are two things. Number one is you know that your employees, like, work their asses off for you and with you during the busy time. So you have this intensely busy season for, I don't know, like 16 weeks where you're like busting your ass working 80, 90, 100-hour weeks. Same thing with your team. And you make sure to play hard with them. So whether that's like taking them out to dinner, taking them to a bar, or having them over at our house for Christmas dinner or for
On
4th of
whitewater
July.
rafting, yeah.
Right, going snowmobiling, and I think that that is like such an admirable quality in you as a leader because your staff has stayed with you for a long time, and I always think that retention is a testament to leadership. But another thing that you do is you are very focused on data and KPIs, which is also something that's super important to me and it is so prominent in every business and in the vacation rental business. We talk about it all the time, like
Mhm.
the main KPIs that are the heartbeat of your company and let you know the health of everything. And you do that with your restaurants. So, what are the KPIs that you are most focused on?
I mean, the things I'm most focused on, and it's not like a P&L cog, right? It's not where you're looking at cogs. There's so many different ones, and especially when once you have start having multiple outlets, but that's for another episode. A single outlet, what I look at most is my labor, my food costs, my cost per cover, my amount of people coming in the door every day. Those two things work together because your amount of people coming in the door every day determines what you got to get in that cost per cover, obviously, because you have certain numbers you got to meet to be able to pay rent. And then the last thing are your fixed costs that you can't really control. How much it costs to have the lights on in the kitchen, how much it costs to keep all the gas flowing to all of the equipment, how much it costs for the hood vents to be running all day, how much it costs to rent all the machines that you don't own, how much it costs to rent the space that you're in. Those things are fixed, obviously. Your food costs, you're always aiming for it to be fixed depending on who you have in charge of it. That's going to fluctuate as well, though. And it's a very sad day at the end of the month when you look at your food costs and you thought you had a great month and your food cost was 31% and you were only making a 6% margin and you didn't make any money that month after working your ass off.
Mhm.
You were just running a business, run a business, and you made nothing. So food costs and labor are the huge ones that you can control. And you never want people working their ass off and feeling like they're overworked, but you got to find that fine line with your employees of how much you can get out of them where they're still happy to be there and where you don't have anybody sitting around. You never walk in your kitchen or your restaurant and you got somebody leaning on a shelf on their phone.
You got time to lean, you got time to clean.
You got time to lean, you're clocking your ass out. But yes, you got time to lean, time to clean. Exactly. And those are things you can control. You can control the food costs. You can control the labor. You can control how much each customer spends
On
when they walk
average,
in the
yeah.
door. And you can control that by pricing on your menu, how you're training your service staff. I say service staff because it could be a server walking up to a table and doing table service, or it could be a person just receiving an order standing at a cashier or a cash register. But what they're upselling. Hey, we got to get each one of these customers to this. We got to, say if you're at a cafe, you want to get average cost per cover. Say your goal is to get it to 15. Somebody walks in and orders a latte for $9. Every single person that just orders a latte for $9 gets pitched how amazing our pastries are and also how great a to-go burrito would be on their trip up into the national park or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And there's so many ways to sell and so many ways to get you there, but there is a million little pieces of training that go in between there. And you always have to have eyes on it, or you have to have someone that will really watch your biz, whether it's an equity position or it's a profit sharing position or whatever that ends up being, that will watch it for you.
Yeah.
Or else it's a free for all. People clock in, get a paycheck, and then you don't have a business in a year.
Are you monitoring these KPIs every single day and, like, making changes daily, or is this more of a once a week thing? Or if you make a change, are you like, "Hey, I'm gonna look at this for 2 weeks," right? Like, let's say if I'm changing rates
Mhm.
most of the time, if I go in and I edit a rate for a property, I'm thinking to myself, "I'm gonna give this between 10 and 14 days, and if I see 0 movement, then I need to make another adjustment."
This is another thing that really, and this is, I mean, this episode maybe should be just be called "How to Staff an F&B Department," because this also depends on staff. So every day I'm hounding on it when I first hire someone, if they're in charge of something, whether it's a catering chef, whether it's a chef de cuisine at the cafe, whether it's my chef tournant, which is the chef that kind of works beside me, helps me come up with recipes and goes to each location whenever I need someone at that location. Those three head chefs, when I'm chatting with them, when they first come on, it's every day. Where are you at? How many people are in your kitchen? How much money are we making today? What's that percentage? We have 5 people working at this much per hour. That's this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to make this much today? No, chef, we're not. Well, then somebody's got to go home. And you're constantly watching that. After you do that for a while and you trust people and people have been working for you for a while, they start watching it for you because they know their bonuses are predicated on that and everything else. But at the beginning, always looking at it every single day.
Mm-hmm.
How many people in this kitchen? You're watching the numbers. You're watching your gross sales. You're watching your net sales, and then you're watching what percentage of your labor of the people working in the kitchen that is.
Do you think that for someone who wants to get into the F&B space that you need somebody that's done it before in order to be successful on your team?
I don't think it's impossible to do it without knowing it. I mean, business is business, right? If you can put the attention towards it, I think you can do it. We've all also worked for or been in those restaurants or known people that have worked in those restaurants of people that just thought it would be cool to have a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And they sit at the end of the bar each night, have drinks. They bring people into their restaurant, but they don't know how to run a restaurant and they've never worked in all those positions.
Yeah.
And it's very clear to me when I walk into a place like, oh, these people had a really cool idea and it looks beautiful inside, but you can tell just from the nuts and bolts of how people are moving around in there, the flow of it could be the flow of how servers walk out of the kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
and it could derail the whole night if you haven't been in that situation before in some capacity. I feel like it's super important, even if you have never been in that, to do a stage, which like in our business, a stage is where you go and you don't work for them, but you just work alongside another chef or another restaurant owner or another maitre d' of a restaurant. And you work there for free just to absorb what's going on there and to learn. I think
I think staging is so cool and something that I think that every single industry should have.
it's amazing.
It is. Could you stage in a coffee shop? Is that a thing?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can. I'm going to when we go to New York. I'm going to stage in multiple different places because I feel like you can never stop learning. And
Yeah.
you find out who's doing something the best and you approach them and see if you could just pick their brain or work alongside them for a couple of days. I mean, I have people stage with us, and for big positions I have people come and stage for us for a couple of days to see if they like the position and to see if I like them there.
Yeah.
How do you flow? You may be a badass and a renowned chef and you have these beautiful dishes all over your Instagram, but you can't work with Tom, Dick, and Harry, that are working alongside you in the kitchen every day,
Yeah.
So I think it's important just to see if it's an environment, and for an owner as well, to see if it's an environment you like being in before you jump off and do it.
I have a petition for all vacation rental owners going to start stashing that I'm going to create after this.
It'll be badass.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so cool. And, I consider a lot of hospitality to be a pretty open industry. Like, you could reach out to anybody. I mean, we're in hospitality, right? So, like,
Mhm.
you could reach out to anybody and they're very welcoming and, like, hey, come spend time with me and my team. Let's get on a call. Let me explain this, and this to you. And I love learning about the chef and the F&B world from you because I think there's so many parallels and like both businesses are really freaking hard to be in. And it's funny because there's this saying in the vacation rental industry that like there's no formal training to be in this industry. Everybody goes to the school of hard knocks. And I think that is very much the case on the F&B side as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't have one person working in our company of when we're in the busiest season. We have over 40, close to 50 employees. I don't have one person that went to college for this. I
Mhm.
have some people that graduated college. I have a chemical engineer, I have people that graduated in business. I have people that graduated in all kinds of different aspects, but none of it was in culinary. None of it was in F&B. None of it was in food and beverage management.
Yeah, I mean,
You learn it as you go.
I do think that that is one thing to be wary of, like, before getting into the F&B side, like, the amount the working hours alone, which on the vacation rental side too, it's very similar, right? Like, you're busy around the holidays. You're busy at 4th of July. You're busy at Christmas. Like, you have guest check-ins during that time period. Like, you gotta be on call at Christmas. There are weekends, like, at 360 Blue, we would turn 600 homes on a Saturday. So we would have 600 people checking out and 600 people checking in on the same day. Like, crazy madhouse. And so the hours are weird and it is exhausting and it's a lot of work, and that is the same thing on the F&B side, that and it's hard to consider, like, when we were opening the cafe, I remember staying up till 3 o'clock in the morning ordering, like, sugar packets because we were gonna open in 3 days, and I, like, forgot that you needed to even have sugar packets to, like, all the small things that go into it, and knowing that it is gonna require so much time, whether that is you or the person you hire, like, it is more than a full-time job, and I feel like that is an understanding that needs to be had before starting onto that venture.
Yeah. Yeah. Whether it's catering, a restaurant, private chef stuff, a food truck. I mean, your goal should be that at some point it becomes just a full-time job. You know?
Yeah.
At some point, maybe it'll become a 40-hour week job. But
I'm waiting for that day to happen for you.
me too.
So, for anyone that's listening that utilizes private chef services for their vacation rental guests and homeowners as, like, part of their concierge program, do you have any advice on how that should be structured?
I think, whether and it can be done two different ways. On our side, I think that the best thing that you could do for the guest is make it seamless. And whether that is you directly connecting them with the sales department of the private chef and them doing everything, or your guest management team talking in the background with the private chef company and or the catering company, and then everything coming from them, but not splitting it up.
Mhm.
I think that is a little, and we do it great. We talk with the guests once they're turned over to us, and I mean that is just amazing because it's flawless. And they, right when they say they want a private chef, boom, they come to our sales team and we quote everything. We talk to them about everything because you're the experts in that, right? It would be like someone calling me and asking me about property management and a place to stay, and then asking me about like what toiletries are there and what kind of pillows are on the bed. I wouldn't have everything, right?
Yeah.
So I think making it seamless as possible. Either train your staff on knowing exactly what the service is and then having them sell it directly to the guest, invoicing the guest, however that happens, or sending them directly to the sales team, but not half and half.
Do you think referral fees are the way to go?
I mean, it depends on your relationship. It depends on your relationship and your position in the community as well. I mean, I think if you have the best product, you don't need that. If you can provide the best product or find the best product for your guests, then they're going to want that, and that's an easy sell.
Does the private chef should pay referral fees to the management company for referring them? That's, like, the setup that normally happens on the concierge side, so I want
Really?
your opinion on, like, do you think that that's the way to go, or is
I'm
it like a
right. I understand. Yeah. I think that there's different ways of doing that. Like for instance, like we host parties for all of the concierge and all the planners and everyone we work for, and we treat them very well, from holiday gift baskets to, bottles of wine and gift cards to all of our places and other places in town as well. And always keeping those relationships up. Like our sales team this week has 5 lunches set up with wedding planners and people that we work with a lot. So
Mhm.
like constantly keeping that relationship up, whether it's whether it's an actual referral or if it's a gift, I think it's so important to just let them know that, that you appreciate them and that yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because, like, referral fees for real estate agents are very I would consider them to be a little controversial. So, like, some management companies will pay referral fees to realtors who bring them business. Like, hey, I have a client who's buying this property. They want to put it on a rental program. I'm going to send them over to you. They
Mhm,
expect
mhm,
$1,000, right? Where some companies are like, hey, I'm not going to pay you a referral fee for sending us business. What I will do is take badass care of your client who hopefully continues to buy homes from you because they're really happy that you referred them to us.
mhm.
It is betting on yourself and your service like a lot, right? Because if you pay someone, you're like, hey, my work here is done. It doesn't really matter because I gave you $1,000 or whatever this may be.
Absolutely.
And so it's interesting. It could either go either way, right? Either you pay referral fees and you say like, hey, thanks for sending me business. Like I'm going to take care of you financially, or it's I'm going to take care of your client
Mhm,
and I'm going to continue to send you business because you do a good job. So I had Ginger and Rachel on the podcast a couple weeks ago who
mhm.
both work with their spouses.
I
And
listened, Queenie.
you did?
Yes.
Did you hear me say my spouse and I always say that we don't know if we could work together?
Yes.
With that being said, would you ever start a restaurant with me?
No. Nope. Next question.
Or what about any other type of business?
There may be some sort of partnership in the future with us where we're both doing the things that we do and they work together. But I love you so much and you are a badass boss ass bitch and I'm a boss too. We don't need to be under the same roof running the same business. Okay, honey?
No, I agree with this. It's interesting because Rachel and her husband Rob, I'm back on my Enneagram bullshit, but Rachel is more like the challenger where Rob is like the peacekeeper.
Mhm.
But Hunter and Ginger both like being the boss, and how they have tackled things is they both have things that they're very clearly responsible for. That is like their wheelhouse, and they don't like if it's a very big business decision, of course they make that together to make sure they're on the same page, but like Ginger, she runs marketing. So like Hunter doesn't get to come in and be like, "What the hell is that mailer, Ginger? And why are you doing this, this, and this? And I saw this on social media." Of course he can have an opinion if she's asking him, but like that's her wheelhouse, right? Like ultimately she runs that. Where he runs like day-to-day operations of the business, and like he manages the team for the most part, like other than marketing, they report to him. And like she's not allowed to come in and be like, hey Hunter, like why'd you tell that to this employee? Like that's bullshit. And it's interesting because it's really they said this, both Rachel and Ginger said this on the last episode, which I thought was really interesting, where they felt like it was almost like more rewarding to run their business together because it is like their family livelihood. And so you are on the same team and you do have this same goal of like making sure that your business is successful. And like, I don't know, I thought that that was cool. Never mind. You hate it.
That is cool.
You hate it?
No, I don't hate it. I just you're
You don't want a family business.
no. No. I mean, if our kids want to work in one of our businesses, absolutely.
No, I mean a family business with me and you.
I mean, we are a family business. Our family is a business. And we'll run that together. Honey.
Well, if anybody's wondering, the Myers business is not starting anytime soon.
You never know.
No, we do know because you just said no. But in all reality, I love you very much. Thank you for being on the episode today. It's always like so exciting to hear you talk about the things you love, and you're so smart and so talented and have so much knowledge to offer on your industry. So, thank you for being here.
Thank you, honey. After listening to you record so many of these and listening to them as well in my car on the way to work, or my mom telling me what you said on it if it was one I didn't listen to, it was cool to be on one. Maybe there's another one. Part 2. F and you, F and me, F and B.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.